This video, we're going to talk about Daeron II, the 12th Targaryen king to rule Westeros. In 184 AC, Aegon IV, also known as Aegon the Unworthy, passed at the age of 49 from complications of obesity, and most likely diabetes. If you want to hear more about him, you can click the video being shown right now. It'll open up in a new tab. You can come back after watching that video. I also set up a Targaryen King playlist at the suggestion of a commenter, listed in the video description below if you haven't seen the other 11 Kings videos. So anyways, Aegon IV dies and Daeron heads from Dragonstone, where he lived with his wife and children, to the Red Keep to be crowned by the High Septon. Daeron II quickly tried to right the wrongs his father inflicted on the realm in Aegon IV's roughly 12 years of misrule. Aegon IV had been greedy, lustful, and gluttonous, and kept men in power and around who gave him what he wanted. Daeron II set out to first remove everyone in the small council and replace it with men he felt more qualified and loyal to him. And he did a really great job of filling those positions with wise, capable people, and just not people that were going to flatter and please him like his father had done. He also spent over a year fixing the City Watch. His father, Aegon the Unworthy, had used promotions in the City Watch as a reward. In turn, these people made sure women were always available to Aegon in brothels or any other place he found a woman desired, even if she was married. So Daeron is basically mopping up the mess Aegon IV left in his wake from his neglect, pettiness, and desire, and he's doing a really good job of it. But unfortunately, there were two big problems that would mar Daeron II's reign: his father's bastards being legitimized, and Dorne. Let's look at both issues, first starting with Dorne. Dorne became a big issue during Daeron II's reign. Before his younger sister was born, Daenerys, to Aegon IV and Nerys, Daeron II was already married to Mariah of Dorne. This meant his wife was a Dornish princess, who was now the queen of the Seven Kingdoms. His marriage to the Princess of Dorne also aided in him becoming friends with the Prince of Dorne and his wife's brother, Moran. This friendship led to many disagreements with his father Aegon IV about attacking Dorne, something Daeron II was very much against, while Aegon IV had an almost fanatical hatred of Dorne. When Daeron II came to the throne, he saw his younger sister Daenerys as a way to finally bring Dorne into the realm. Marrying Daenerys to Moran did something neither Aegon the Conqueror or his namesake Daeron I could do. Dorne became a part of the realm. However, there were concessions. After 2 years of negotiations, Princess Daenerys married the Prince of Dorne. Under these concessions, Dorne royalty were allowed to keep their styling and titles. They were allowed to maintain their own laws. Dorne had more privileges and rights than any other house. And King's Landing wasn't overseeing the collection of taxes from Dorne as strictly as they did with the other houses. A year after Moran wed Daenerys in 188 AC, the Prince of Dorne knelt before Daeron II, swore his fealty to him before the Iron Throne. Daeron II raised him to his feet, and they went to the Great Sept of Baelor, placed a golden wreath before the statue of King Baelor the Blessed, and stated, "Baelor, your work is done." Summerhall was then created in the Dornish marshes, near the boundaries of the Reach, the Stormlands, and Dorne. It was a castle, but it was more like a lightly guarded palace to show the new peace between Dorne and the rest of the realm. Many sons of House Targaryen would hold the seat as Prince of Summerhall. Bringing Dorne into the realm didn't sit well with everyone. Many nobles and lords saw King's Landing being invaded by the Dornes, as Daeron II brought in scholars and men from Dorne to advise and sit on the council. It didn't pass them that Dornish individuals often had the king's ear, and that his Dornish wife often influenced him. Even though he was called Daeron the Good by the small folk and nobles, discontent began to rise. Even Daeron II's eldest son had dark hair and eyes, and people began to mutter how his heir was more Martell than Targaryen. Lords and knights of the Dornish marshes looked at Daeron II and his heir Baelor and grew to mistrust them, remembering the good days of war. In times of peace, what was there to do? Where was the glory? The Dornish had been their enemies for so long, it felt wrong for their longtime rivals to have the king's attention. This leads to the bastards of Aegon IV. One of the other biggest messes during Daeron II's rule was the fact that the bastards of Aegon IV were legitimized on his deathbed. Daeron II knew he couldn't take it back and honestly refused to, even if he could, what his father did, and instead attempted to reach out and treat them with honor, hoping that would cause stability in the realm. And Daeron II really tried. One of his father's favorite bastards that became legitimized was Daemon Blackfyre, who Aegon IV had given Aegon the Conqueror's sword, Blackfyre, to, which caused some issues later on. Daeron II paid the dowry that his father had promised to the Archon of Tyrosh, which allowed Roanne of Tyrosh to marry 14-year-old Daemon Blackfyre. Daeron II also gave his half-brother Daemon a tract of land with the right to raise a castle. So you see, Daeron is really trying to make his half-brother feel welcomed and a part of the family, and is even continuing up the allowances that were given to all the other bastards. But all this is proved to be in vain. And for 8 years into Daeron II's reign, not only resentment from the people who hated Dorne grew, but also Daemon Blackfyre's hatred for Daeron II grew. Why is under some speculation. Singers and a few maesters claim that Daemon loved Daenerys, his half-sister, and seeing her married to the Dornish prince instead of him made him grow angry, despite having a wife of his own. They also claim Daenerys loved her bastard half-brother as well, and yet others claim that Aegon IV had promised Daemon that he could have multiple wives, Daenerys included, and Daemon being denied that ability to have multiple wives by Daeron II angered him greatly. Discontent with Dorne and the bastards of Aegon IV led to a rebellion 8 years into Daeron II's rule in 196 AC. There was no one thing that caused it, no final slight to Daemon or those who hated Dorne. There are different thoughts on why exactly the rebellion broke out in 196 AC. Some thought the denied love of Daenerys caused Daemon to rebel for the woman he couldn't have, but that seems weird since Daenerys had been married to Moran for quite some time and given him multiple children. And why did Daemon wait so long to try to claim her through rebellion? Daemon also had 7 sons and daughters from his wife, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense why he would wait so long. Others think the rebellion occurred because Aegon IV had caused so much hate for Dorne, and now that a Dorne-loving peaceful king ruled, they weren't content. Knights and warriors began to seek out Daemon in their discontent. Daemon at first only listened to the talk, which super boosted his ego. And maybe he would have been happy just hearing talk that he was meant to rule Westeros. But another bastard of Aegon, Sir Arger Rivers, known as Bittersteel, came to his side, whispering the same things. That Westeros belonged to Daemon and that he was the rightful ruler. And it should be known that Bittersteel hated his half-bastard brother, Brynden Rivers, known as Bloodraven, who had maintained his life at court, and mother, Missy Blackwood, was well loved in her life. And when Aegon IV was done with her as a mistress, she didn't suffer like the Brackens had. Bittersteel began to pressure Daemon into taking the throne, what he considered Daemon's right. Bittersteel poisoned Daemon with talks of rebellion, and it only got worse after Daemon married his eldest daughter to Bittersteel. Finally, Daemon succumbed to the urgings of Bittersteel and others and decided to finally rebel. Fortunately, Daeron, through some means, maybe Bloodraven, heard of Daemon's intent to declare himself king within a month. Daeron II sent King's guards to arrest Daemon. Luckily for Daemon, he heard about his arrest attempt and escaped the Red Keep with the help of Sir Quentin Ball, called Fireball. This attempted arrest gave the rebellion more base. They claimed Daeron II was attempting to arrest Daemon under baseless fears, or maybe he knew Daemon was the rightful ruler and feared him. People began to call Daeron II Daeron Falseborn, the same thing Aegon IV had accused him of late in his rule. Daeron II wasn't Aegon IV's son, but the Dragon Knight Aemond's. The first Blackfyre rebellion had begun. Those that opposed Daeron II reversed the Targaryen colors with the black dragon on a red field. They claimed Daemon was the true son of Aegon IV, the eldest, and Daeron II was a bastard. Fights broke out in the Riverlands, Westerlands, the Vale, and other places. Fortunately, the rebellion ended roughly a year after it started. On the Redgrass Field, Daemon and his eldest sons, Aegon and Aemon, died by arrows sent by Brynden Rivers and his private guards, the Raven's Teeth. Bittersteel took Blackfyre the sword in his hands, tried to rally Daemon's men, and charged at Bloodraven and his forces. A duel ensued that ended with Bloodraven being blind in one eye and Bittersteel fleeing. The battle officially ended when Daeron II's eldest son, Baelor Breakspear, came with a host of Stormlords and Dornishmen from the rear, and Daeron II's youngest son, Maekar, rallied the remaining forces of Lord Aerys and came down on the rebels. One of the best descriptions we have of what specifically went on the Redgrass Field battle was by Sir Arlen, a knight that fought on the side of Daemon Blackfyre. He said, "The singers leave out much and more. Daemon was the warrior himself that day. No man could stand before him. He broke Lord Aeron's van to pieces and slew the Knights of the Nine Stars and Wild Waynwood before coming up against Sir Corbray of the Kingsguard. For near an hour they danced together on their horses, wheeling and circling and slashing as men died all around them. It's said that whenever Blackfyre and Lord Forlorn clashed, you could hear the sound for a league around. It was half a song and half a scream, they say. But when at last the lady faltered, Blackfyre clove through Sir Gawain's helmet and left him blind and bleeding. Daemon dismounted to see that his fallen foe was not trampled, and commanded Redtusk to carry him back to the maesters in the rear. And that was his mortal error, for the Raven's teeth had gained the top of Weeping Ridge, and Bloodraven saw his half-brother's royal standard 300 yards away, and Daemon and his sons beneath it. He slew Aegon first, the elder of the twins, for he knew that Daemon would never leave the boy while there was warmth lingering in his body. The white shafts fell like rain. Nor did he, though 7 arrows pierced him, driven as much by the sorcery as by Bloodraven's bow. Young Aemon took up Blackfyre when the blade slipped from his dying father's fingers, so Bloodraven slew him too, the younger of the twins. Thus perished the Black Dragon and his sons. There was much and more afterwards, I know. I saw a bit of it myself. The rebels running, Bittersteel turning the rout and leading his mad charge, his battle with Bloodraven, second only to the one Daemon fought with Gawain and Corbray. Prince Baelor's hammer blow against the rebel rear, the Dornish men all screaming as they filled the air with spears. But at the end of the day, it made no matter. The war was done when Daemon died. So close a thing, if Daemon had ridden over Gawain Corbray and left him to his fate, he might have broken Maekar's left before Bloodraven could take the ridge. The day would have belonged to the Black Dragons then, with the hand slain and the road to the King's Landing open before him. Daemon might have been sitting on the throne by the time Prince Baelor could come with the Stormlords and his Dornish men. The singers go on about their hammer and their anvil, sir, but it was the Kingslayer who turned the tide with a white arrow and a black spell. Regardless of how exactly the battle went, it ended with Daemon and his heir and his next eldest child slain, and 10,000 men dead and more maimed and killed. King Daeron, in the aftermath, was actually pretty stern with the rebels in ways that people didn't think he would be. Lords and knights that rebelled had seats and privileges taken away and their hostages removed from them. Daemon's surviving sons fled to Tyrosh with Bittersteel. The Blackfyre pretenders would cause problems for 4 more generations, and maybe longer if certain theories are true. Daeron II had brought peace to the realm, lost it when his half-brothers betrayed him, perhaps because he was too giving and lenient with them, and then he managed to bring peace back with his strong heirs and sons. So I'm going to end this video talking about Daeron II's 4 kids. Daeron had 4 kids. Baelor Breakspear was the eldest and was a great knight named for unhorsing Daemon Blackfyre in the final tilt during the tourney celebrating the wedding of Princess Daenerys with Prince Meran of Dorne. Many thought he would make a great king. He was chivalrous, wise, ably served as his father as Hand of the King, and a great warrior. In 109 AC, at the tourney in Ashford, Baelor was killed by his youngest brother Maekar. It was an accident, a mace to the back of his helmet, during a trial of 7 to determine the guilt of a hedge knight, something Maekar regretted to the end of his days. Daeron II's next child, Aerys, was more interested in books like his father and obsessed with arcane matters. Many felt he would make a poor king. His 3rd son, Rhaegal, was said to be mad, and his 4th son, Maekar, was a formidable fighter. Despite having an heir and children that had children themselves, a spring sickness came to the realm affecting every heir but Dorne and the Vale, who had closed ports and mountain passes when the plague began. King's Landing was hit the hardest. The High Septon died, a third of the most devout passed, and almost all the Silent Sisters were killed in the plague. Corpses were piled in the dragon pit 10 feet high and burned. A quarter of King's Landing was burned down in the process. The most tragic deaths were the sons of Baelor Breakspear and Daeron II himself. He had ruled for 25 years, and despite the Blackfyre Rebellion, had a mostly peaceful, prosperous reign. Make sure you like, subscribe, and come back every Sunday for new Game of Thrones videos.